Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Slireman.
What's going on, dude?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right, we had an eventful week.
Always.
We had a Twitter space at 7 a.m. on Monday.
You sure did.
It's a good way to start the week.
Perfectly in tune with your body rhythm, I'm sure.
It's a great way for you to start the week.
That's right. How did it go, by the way?
It went pretty good. So I had a Twitter space with CoinX and Alfred from CoinX, and they had pretty good questions on the NAT token.
I'm sure they did.
And they definitely did their research, so they had really solid questions.
Okay, cool.
They were so good that I think we should probably do a Twitter space where it's like all-encompassing. Like if you ever wanted to understand NAT in just like an audio format, you just read through these questions and answer them, and then that's the Twitter space. And
then it gets recorded or something?
It gets recorded and actually used, because a lot of Twitter spaces, they don't really get used.
Yeah, like clipped.
Yeah, they don't get clipped. I mean, it's just
clipping is like the thing, right? So it's like, yeah, you could just take the audio of the space and then add some B-roll or something, make some clips, some shorts out of that.
Yeah. I mean,
somebody.
That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of effort.
Somebody out there, we could build like a WAP campaign or whatever it's called. WAP it.
I've never even heard that word, dude.
You're missing out on the whopping, on the whopathon. So that's like the new economy, dude. The new gig economy is just clipping, apparently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So it's called whopping?
No, I think I made that up. It's called WAP.
Well, yeah, but it's WAP.
Yeah, the platform is called WAP. So all you do is create a campaign there, and
you just WAP it?
People come in and WAP the floor, dude. Make some clips for you and make some money, I guess, if it results in.
So is it like a contract gig? It's like I need this, and then you do that, and then here's money.
It's like here's a honey pot, right? $10,000 for some campaign. Like clip this, send it out there on TikTok, and if you generate some KPIs, you get a portion of this pot.
Huh.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Tether invested $200 million into it, so it's got to be doing well.
It's definitely cool then.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, we need to do more, I guess, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Like NAT material, because apparently, there's a Bitcoin convention going on right now.
I heard.
Can you imagine? Dude, that year went by so quick. But we got soldiers on the front line out there trying to spread the good word. And they've done such a good job. People like CB Spears have taken notice.
Yeah.
And they're publicly requesting this type of stuff you're talking about. Does anybody have a master thread or a master compilation of what is NAT about? And I feel like there should be plenty of that kind of supplemental material out there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is through this podcast and the videos that we make, and that's not the most digestible, I guess.
Definitely. No, it's not in today's day and age, right? That's what I mean.
It's just hard to encompass the whole story of NAT, because the story of NAT is part of the product, right? The NAT being directed to the miners, that's part of it. Mm. But the only reason why it has viability is because of its story and like how it manifested. Yeah,
it's a true organic thing, right? Which crypto sorely lacks a lot of that,
That's true. There's a lot of vampire attacks. There's a lot of copycats.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of that here in a little bit. But first things first, for those of you who are tuning in, you're like going to NAT.fun right now, and you're wondering why.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Why it's still just a splash page. You were like, what the fuck? You guys said the next video we're live.
Yeah.
So.
I forgot about that.
A little oopsie.
Yeah.
So it's the next video.
Not this one, but the next one.
Yeah, I guess we should have said the next 20-minute video.
Yeah, that's what we should have said, yeah. Because we got to stay committed with our weekly podcast.
True.
There's a lot to talk about, and, man, this is like the 313th one, I think, so.
Which one?
313th.
Damn, that's a lot. That's a lot of weeks of crypto digesting, dude.
That is a lot. That would almost qualify us as experts, wouldn't it?
Almost.
I said almost.
We're almost experts at crypto, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I haven't got my 10,000 hours of Dota in yet. So.
Oh, okay. But you've had at least 10,000 hours of crypto. How much time is that actually? Let's just do a quick sanity check. We're gonna use math here, guys.
But I'm just saying, like, if you look at my Steam profile, I've got like 9,000 hours or something.
Oh,
Dota,
I see.
And,
I see.
And I definitely don't feel like an expert at Dota. You know?
Yeah.
I'm
Just
like
getting through the tutorial.
yeah, I'm getting worse over time.
It's 416 days.
That's a lot of living.
This is 416 days, dude.
I know, but imagine
Only doing crypto for 416 days, specifically only. No sleeping,
right.
no eating.
Yeah, so can you spread that out over like 8 years? Like, meaning like, I guess how many hours is that in total? 418 times 24, right? And then like
That's 10,000 hours.
oh, okay,
Yeah, you're going backwards.
okay, 10,000 hours distributed over 8 years is
So 10K over 8. That is 1,250 hours per year.
okay. Now, can we break that into like daily? So like it's 365.
So that divided by 365, that is 3.4 hours per day.
Wow, that's it.
Over
Yeah,
8 years.
I've put in way more than
Yeah,
that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, 3 hours a day on crypto. No, it's
3 hours a day, every day for 8 years.
That means we've hit 10K milestone several years ago.
I think so.
So we're like triple experts at this point.
Yeah.
Those 10K in a week, dude.
This is pretty wild, dude. It's been quite the investment of time and energy into all this. Would you agree?
Yeah, all for number to go down technology, right?
Not for us.
Not for us. No.
Not doing quite well.
Yeah.
But yeah, for others, I guess we're gonna bring up the printer thing. A lot of you guys probably don't even know what the hell's going on because even though there's a lot of attention on this thing, it doesn't have like mass attention, right? But we're paying close attention to it because it's in the battle arena, I guess, if you will,
Sure.
of like, you know, crypto launchpads, which NAT.fun is targeted to partake in all that fun.
Yeah, I mean, all the launch pads that we've seen that have been roughly, you know, give or take successful, they've been on Solana.
Yeah, there's been some virtuals on Base.
Yeah, but that was on
Zora on Base.
they migrated to Solana too, right?
Yeah,
So
they-
it's
They tried. It just
tried.
It never
They-
works.
yeah.
It's usually whatever your home nest is, that is your ecosystem, right?
Yeah, so you mentioned 2 on base, but that's it.
Yeah. I mean, we saw all the pump clones everywhere else, you know. They attempted.
Yeah, I mean,
None of them really gained any actual traction. But yeah, I mean, Solana is like the beacon or the nexus of like consumer crypto activity, right? Therefore, it's like the high velocity trading environment. Like
Yeah.
That's what it's branded itself to be, and it has the right infrastructure for that, which is why you see like this frequent attempt, basically.
yeah. So Printr is another one. Printr is another one that launched on Solana like a few weeks ago.
No, they launched in October,
Oh, okay.
but like nobody was using it.
Huh.
It started as like an omni platform, meaning like you could launch a coin and have liquidity on many
Yeah.
chains at once.
Yeah.
So it's like if you want to trade this meme on Base and on Arbitrum and on Solana at the same time, you can.
So they supply liquidity on all these chains.
Yeah. So that was like the initial iteration of their product.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really take off, but then they did a V2 launch, which was like a staking component, right? Where it's like, you know, you lock up your meme coins, you get some sort of percentage of redistributed fee earnings from the trading of that coin.
I see.
And that took off 2 weeks ago
Okay.
to a degree where people were, you know, as they do, equating it to potentially the next pump killer, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So how did it go, dude?
Yeah. So after those 2 weeks, we got a message from Fed on Twitter. He says, a new chapter for Printr. After a successful 2 weeks, he says, I apologize for the radio silence. This has been incredibly difficult. After 2 years of building Printr, I'm stepping down as CEO. And Lennon, our COO and head of go-to-market, will take over as CEO, effective immediately.
Yeah, this was quite a shocker of a tweet to see this morning.
So give us the lead up to this. Like, what prompted? What occurred here?
Well, I wasn't expecting this big of like a crumble because everything looked good for the bulk majority of this 2-week time frame, right? It's like, oh wow, they had a flagship token called Belief.
Mm-hmm.
It was climbing in the market cap rankings. It hit like 20 million. It inspired a community to rally around that. And then what does that typically do? It means people start launching their own tokens through their platform. It's like, all right, then volume picks up, and then before you know it, it starts ratcheting its way up the leaderboard, which it's here somewhere, right? No.
Oh, here,
this leaderboard.
Okay, yeah, Jupiter leaderboard.
Yeah, so if this is where you you want to keep your eyes at if you want to, see what the launch ecosystem, like what the status of it is. And then, this Printr thing just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. And it outperformed Bonk, outperformed Bagzap, Moonshot, even Believe, which, has its own scandalous activities happening at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's still there. It's still, humming along, I guess.
Believe is number 16.
Yeah. It's still somewhere in the mix.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like all systems go. Everything was doing well. The community was building. And then they felt the urge or the whatever.
They woke up one morning and were like, let's do an ICO.
Let's do a token sale.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that was like the inflection point where sentiment kind of inversed.
Reversed.
Yeah.
Huh.
Why? Because, I don't know. It's just like, it seems like you're pulling the trigger on that a little too quick. You get a week of traction, and then you immediately want to,
yeah, sell a token.
Sell a token to us. It's like, how about we, push the boundaries a bit. Let's, expand this ecosystem. Let's prove this model a little bit more.
Yeah.
So prices started to go down, right? If you look at the charts. And what does that do? You start to panic a little bit, right? You start to sweat.
Yeah.
So all this leading up to the CEO's announcement that he needs a mental health break from all of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were watching this happen in real time, the 2 weeks, just because we like paying attention to what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting traction, and all of a sudden they announced they're doing an ICO. It ran for like a couple of days. They raised like $2 million.
Yeah, they were using Coinbase's whole system,
Sonar,
which came from Echo, which was Kobe's thing.
Yeah, purchased for $400 million.
Yeah, so I was like, oh yeah, why did Coinbase spend all that money? Well, it's, I guess, for this to kind of like provide the ICO rails for projects like this.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. It's like, wow, it's like they went from basically a nothing burger of a platform to getting all the market's attention and liquidity, and then Coinbase rolling out the red carpet for them.
Yeah.
They had a $2 million target for their sale, and they achieved it within like the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's like everything's going great.
Yeah.
Look at the face of the guy. Couldn't look happier. I don't know if his face is. It's in one of these tweets. Mr. Fed here. Look at that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the face of a man who's crushing it out there. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
That's him. He's doxxed. He went on like a stream to kind of talk about Printr.
Yeah.
Everyone's loving it, dude. And like at the flip of a switch, it's over.
Yeah.
Kind of. Right.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what happened kind of like on the back end of stuff, but yeah, I mean, he's stepping down, citing mental health, which it's a real thing. If you spend any time on Twitter, especially crypto Twitter, you need mental health as well.
Yeah, maybe. So we have like some personal experience with this, right? We've had moments where things we've done in our past have garnered a lot of market attention, and that's good in most cases, but it also can be very bad, and people become very like vitriolic and very venomous, and they're like their life's purpose all of a sudden becomes like personal attack.
Yeah, bazookas.
They're launching at you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that is like a real human interaction, even though it's like not a physical one. It's happening over the internet.
Yeah, psychologically, like from your brain's perspective, it's a real interaction.
Yeah, it has like a real strike, right? It's like, even though these are just like pixels on a screen, it still triggers all those same brain receptors, right? So so this guy, this may have been like his first exposure to that, and I guess it was like,
yeah, I mean, it wasn't pretty out there. They were saying, Printr's a scam and all this stuff, and You know, that's not necessarily the case, but it could be the emotional outcome or the emotional result of maybe you should have waited and you didn't, and it looks like you're trying to take advantage when you don't need to.
Right. So it's just basically people within the community disagreeing with, you know, the direction that this team was headed on. So, of course, and that's going to fall on the CEO's lap, right?
Yeah.
Whoever made these decisions, it's always like the CEO who's like, to blame.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
Yeah. So it's like part of the job. It's like, can you tolerate this degree of, you know, harassment? Seriously, that's part of it, dude.
It is part of it.
And to a lot of people, they might not know, like, that's what they're getting into. Like, when your job is to build a platform that services like the trenches, the trenchers, these types of individuals.
Yeah.
This is part of the course. You're gonna inevitably have to deal with this. Elon deals with it daily.
Yeah, he's chilling.
Who knows where he's at? He probably is chilling. He probably doesn't even manage his Twitter account anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like all operated by goons and such. But nonetheless, he brunted that storm.
He did.
And got to the other side, right?
Yeah. I mean, what? Yeah, I mean, it's something. If you're going to be in crypto, this is what you should expect. And if you're successful, you can expect this 10x, 100x fold. So yeah, I mean, there's another tweet here. You just stepped down.
Turbulent. Breakdown, basically. What
happened. Oh, okay. So here's the timeline. So if you guys want to follow up on the timeline, it's all here. So the belief crashes 70%. After announcing the print pre-sale. Checks start showing and ecosystem rugs escalate.
Yeah, there was a project here called Fax. I think that was like the nail in the coffin. It's just like somebody launched a shitter through your platform. They called it Fax, you know, printer, fax. Hilarious.
Yeah.
But it came with like some sort of like new utility, I guess, or some new functionality. So, you know, from the dev's perspective, like, that's cool. Somebody in the ecosystem is actually trying to contribute.
Yeah.
Let's tweet about it and say positive things about this somebody in the ecosystem. You do that, it influences market value of the thing, price go up, and then rug ensues.
Fax rugs,
and then I'm sure this that was like the dagger in the heart to this guy, right? It's like, fuck, dude, I thought you were like. So there's a little bit of like a naivety, I guess. Maybe of like assuming everybody's a good actor.
Yeah, the thing is, Pump they did that with other tokens too, right?
For sure.
They highlighted tokens; those tokens went up, and obviously,
I think Pump. What Pump does right is like they kind of give it a little bit more time before they step on the like amplification button.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, yeah, it's doing well, but like we need to wait for it to do like really well before we kind of like rally in and try and, you know, I don't know. Creator capital markets is the next big thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so that maybe it's a combination of a lot of things, like a little bit of naivety of like what the space actually is, the vibe of it, and the inexperience of like, you know, interfacing with I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just part of like what a permissionless system results in, right? So you got to be able to deal and manage with that. And I guess for this guy, this individual case, it was too much, right? Overwhelming.
Yeah. So what happened to the ICO? They ended up doing a refund, right?
Yep. All the $2 million back. Well, yeah, I don't know if it's been fully delivered yet, but that's what they announced.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's we've seen this. I mean, we saw this with Believe. We saw this with Heaven, Bonk, and now Printr. Like, a lot of people want to come in and claim that they're disrupting the Pump.Fun model in some way. And so far, all of them have failed.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of says something directly to us.
Yeah.
At least to me, it does.
Yeah, this is a learning, this is a teaching/learning moment for us because we're about to enter into the arena here.
Yeah, we're saying a lot of similar things. Like, we feel like we've created something here that is disruptive to Pump.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is.
And we don't say that as like a marketing tactic. It's like it's like a genuine belief because, you know, we've been testing this thing, we've been building this thing, and like the whole thesis around why we even decided to like construct it and put it together in the first place.
Yeah, because fundamentally, if you go check out Printr, Let's Bonk. Basically, look at all the platforms here. They all essentially are the same. You launch a token, it's on a bonding curve, and then it graduates, and then it's off. It's like whatever happens, happens. Yeah, that's largely what everyone is doing here.
Literally everyone.
Like literally.
It's like not even largely. It's every single one. They do the same thing.
Yeah, and it all came from Pump.
Yeah.
And so Pump did a very innovative thing. They actually built a bonding curve from scratch, right? There weren't tools out there like there is now.
Yeah.
And they developed this thing, ended up generating $1 billion in volume, or $1 billion in revenue, I should say. And then it got platformatized by Meteora and Radium, and now you have all these like clones. And all of them do the exact same thing. Our platform has a similar model. It's on a bonding curve, but when a token graduates, NFTs get distributed.
Right.
And those NFTs are essentially free for the token holders, and they can list it at whatever price that the market deems. And there's price discovery happening on NFTs, which is the exact opposite of what happened in 2021, where creators launched NFTs at a specific price, and that was number go down only technology.
Right. So that solves like Pump came to market and actually brought like a technical solution to a problem, right? It's bootstrapping liquidity for token creation, right? Like anybody who's tried to build a token from the ground up understands this dilemma. We do with NAT.
Yeah.
It was a free and fair token, but trying to aggregate liquidity, it's difficult, right? So you build a system that does that through the bonding curve. That's what Pump did and introduced, and it worked swimmingly. Yeah. Right? So NFTs is like another kind of broken model as far as like how they're distributed, in the legacy world, 2021 era. It's like you create a supply, you give them a price. There's 10,000 of these things. Each one is what, $100?
Yeah.
What does that net you? $1 million for the creator?
Yeah.
That's the starting market cap. Like price discovery starts there. And we ran that to hell, all the way to the depths of,
to the tune of 50 billion in volume or something like that.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
But it was a tremendous market experience, right?
Yeah. NFTs were claimed to be compared to the iPhone moment.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that presentation. It was sound, actually, by the numbers.
Sure.
Like, holy shit. NFTs are a big deal, right? But they haven't resurrected yet.
No, they're as dead. They're right there, right next to the metaverse. And the metaverse is pretty dead.
Yeah. Except for Roblox, keeping it alive a bit.
That's the only one, yeah.
But yeah, so there needs to be some sort of new mechanism that kind of solves this problem, right? With the distribution curve of NFTs. And along with that, it's like we know there's demand for like free and fair distribution of collections. Like we saw that in Ordinals.
That's right.
People loved it. But what the consequence of that distribution model is creator insustainability.
That's right.
You can't just freely launch things and then like iterate and build further and like be incentive aligned to continue the growth of that thing you've deployed.
Correct. Right? Yeah, because the creator in that scenario has to mint their own assets. Yeah. And then when number go up, they have to sell those assets.
Dump on you?
Yeah. And it's just not a good look.
If that's the only vertical of sustainability, it's a bad market dynamic, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because then people see your creator exiting. That's a perpetual down motion.
That's right.
So what do we do about that, right? And that's what we spent, again, a lot of time thinking about, a lot of time building these rails to facilitate, right? So
yeah, so that means that a creator that launches on NAT.fun, that creator is aligned with the community because as volume accrues on that particular fungible token, the creator gets paid to continue working on the product. And then if it graduates, NFTs get distributed to the token holders, and the token holders get to decide what that price is.
Yeah.
And this is a different market dynamic that we haven't seen before. And Definitely so this is really a large experiment.
Yeah, 100%. And it gives like fungible tokens finally something new to kind of like anchor their value to. Right?
That's right.
It's not just like the value of a fleeting meme. Right?
Yeah. How good can this guy tweet?
Yeah, or like how viral can this meme get, right? It's like it's more it's that plus appended to like the cultural significance of a collection that's built around that, whatever that ends up being, right? So there's a dual market dynamic there where like both asset classes kind of feed off one another.
Yeah, they're launched together, and once the assets are distributed, it's up to the market to decide what the price is, and it starts at zero essentially.
Yeah, so we think that's pretty cool. We think that qualifies NAT.fun as something that should, at some point, once it's deployed, position itself on this leaderboard.
For sure.
But we took it a step even further in case that's not good enough.
Yeah.
All right? In case everything we just said is like actually ass.
It's mid.
Super mid.
Yeah.
We did this whole fucking thing where we somehow strapped it all to Bitcoin and it's like data substrate layer, which is like, what? What are those words you just said?
Yeah. So why is it called NAT.fun, first of all?
Yeah.
It's NAT.fun because it's non-arbitrary tokens.
Right.
That's what it stands for. And it just so happens that there's a NAT token that, at some point reached 100 million, 150 million because it's being distributed to the miners.
Yeah.
And this is a token that's supposed to address the declining Bitcoin security budget issue that is very apparent if you do the math.
Yeah, therefore it gives it like some adjacent value premise to Bitcoin, right? And people might laugh when you tell them that for the first time. It's like, oh, here comes another one.
Yeah.
Claiming to be,
my token's better than Bitcoin.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, that's not what we're claiming, but
no,
we're claiming it to be like a fundamental requirement to sustain the security of this thing we call Bitcoin that we adore so much, right? That we wear T-shirts of it basically every day.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Bitcoin, the whole crypto community relies on Bitcoin's success.
Yeah, that's the issue, though.
And no one understands that.
Some people do, but the majority have lost that.
Yeah.
That used to be like cryptos. Man, I remember in 2017, man, like we all rallied behind Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We loved seeing Bitcoin fly because we knew what that meant.
Yeah.
we knew that meant it's like, it's like dad is killing it out there.
Yeah.
He's about to feed the rest of us, right?
That's right.
Somehow we lost that as like a culture, a community.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck Bitcoin, dude. It's like, we hope it dies and never comes back because, it's Blockbuster.
Yeah. I mean, that's the sentiment that the bankless guys keep saying. It's like it has a security budget issue, therefore Ethereum is way better, and it's going to overtake Bitcoin, which, again, it's a very rational conclusion, but it really forgets the fact that the reason why Ethereum exists is because of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin has been implanted into the industry as the thing that needs to have, like, success. For sure. Because if Bitcoin doesn't have success, there is no potential for any other token.
Yeah, it even goes beyond like industry. I think it's like human psychology. Like, if Bitcoin fails, the whole thesis of like digital tokenization of value, I think, goes out the window. Yeah,
I mean, and it doesn't mean that like everything goes to zero. It's more like
I feel like
the psychological like importance of crypto gets a significant hit.
To me, it's like everything feels like it's out the window. It's like the belief in crypto as like a value device. If Bitcoin doesn't serve as that because it's the most like pure form of crypto.
Sure, yeah.
And it's the one that originated, started everything. It's the most like thermodynamically valid one.
I mean, it's consuming a ton of energy, which is a very good thing, by the way. If you don't understand that, we got a ton of videos that explain all that.
Yeah, so that's like the ethos of what it is, I guess, we believe. So we feel like there's tremendous value to that, and it needs to be applied to every like sector of crypto in order to like actually give it something to stand on, right? So it's like, all right, let's do this thing called NAT.fun where it's solving a NFT crisis by building on top of the systemic rails that are working today, but expanding that into the realm of non-fungibles. But now imbuing everything with this thing we've identified as having its such purity and whatever these properties are of Bitcoin that make it so,
Yeah, it's the thermodynamic properties. It's the permissionless nature. Like you should be able to use Bitcoin however you want to use it as long as you're following the protocol. That's what happened with ordinals. That's what's happening with NAT. And it's permissionless, so therefore it's it's part of Bitcoin. And now that we've identified this problem, and many have over time have identified this security budget issue, we feel like NAT has the mechanics to really support Bitcoin long term. Like, in let's say 2 halvenings from now, all the way to 2140, the subsidy of Bitcoin continues to exponentially decay to zero. And then a lot of people say that, well, it's the fees that are supposed to support the network. Yeah. But they forget the fact. They don't understand the value proposition of where the value of Bitcoin actually comes from. Mm-hmm. And it comes from the security. And so if security equals the revenue of miners, if revenue of miners goes down, security goes down, and therefore Bitcoin is valueless.
Yeah, so why does that matter for us or any NAT.fun creator or collector who's, engaging with these non-arbitrary tokens? Because it's all anchored to this thing you just described, is the data that determines the supply existence of these things.
That's right.
It cannot be corruptible.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning that's what gives it its title of non-arbitrariness, right? Because Bitcoin is such a human marvel of an achievement of, converting raw energy into like digital truth machine.
Yeah.
It's like that needs to be upheld to its like maximum degree in order to build on top of that, which we're actively doing. Mm-hmm. What we have done with DMT and, things like UNATs, like NatCats and Royals and all that stuff. But now we're expanding that abroad, right? So that's what NAT.fun does and will do. And we feel like that brings another fundamental missing ingredient to this whole ecosystem problem, right? It's not just people who are lacking creativity or whatever that thing is, where everyone's just replicating exactly what Pump does and like spinning a new narrative around that.
Yeah, there's something to say when you look at this list and you go through all the platforms and they all do the same thing.
Basically,
there's something to say that it's just much easier to replicate, right? That's not a shocking thing, but to the scale to that, that's happening is just astounding.
It is.
And there's just lack of creativity, lack of just new stuff being injected in the wider crypto ecosystem. Is just copy pasta and run it, extract, and pretty much it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know if creativity is the right word, or I definitely don't want to say first principles thinking because everybody says that now.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it's just trying to take advantage.
To me, it's like actually giving a fuck. That's
maybe so. I think that's probably the best way.
Yeah, because if you actually don't give a fuck, you just understand like there's a game being played here.
That's right. Yes.
Right. And
yes.
all I need to do is play the game, in order to win. Right.
Yeah.
But if you actually give a fuck, like like take the video game industry for example, it's like you understand there's a lot of games out there being played, but because I give a fuck about video games, I'm gonna make Diablo.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to make Warcraft. Yeah. I'm going to make, I'm going to take it a step even further. I'm going to make World of Warcraft. Why? Yeah. Because no one else is doing this shit. And I actually give a fuck about the video game industry and I love games.
Yeah.
And I want to build the best game out there. Right.
Yeah. Versus building something that's
Blizzard, by the way.
Yeah. That's like, instead of building a game on like the mobile app, which is there to just create some sort of casino so that you can just put some ads there and make a ton of money.
Yeah, make a few million bucks, and I'm chilling.
And both of them are playing the game. Both of them are trying to make money. Mm-hmm. But one is approaching from like a fundamentals perspective, like let's just make a good game and we'll make money, versus let's just make a casino and we'll also make money.
Yeah, I think it's so that basically there's just not enough Blizzard type founders in our industry.
Yeah,
right? Like people who approach the game with that mentality. It's like, we want to play, but we want to do something that like actually, pushes us to a new whatever.
Yeah. Experiment.
Yeah. Like fucking Blizzard is an incredible company, dude.
Yeah.
Incredible company to emulate
and they're continuously successful too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. 20 years, 25 years or something of just like badassery of like delivering, top of the line new experiences for their customer base. Right. And that's why the video game industry, at some point seemed as if it's flourishing, but now it seems like it's being swallowed by one company.
Yeah, definitely not.
It's like Roblox now.
Yeah, I mean,
but still,
I mean, we've been playing games since like Super Nintendo days, and once we got to the Xbox and PlayStation 2, like the games haven't really changed.
Yeah,
it's all been the same.
Pretty much, but that's for a lot of reasons, right? Like we've kind of plateaued from like a technical.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's really the case.
I think it's maybe just their industry is like suffering from a lack of give a fuck energy. Maybe
I think it's actually a combination to a certain degree that, but also things just gotten way too expensive. It's too much money to make a game. And to make a good game takes a lot of money.
Yeah, look at GTA. Dude.
Exactly. They spent like $500 million making a game.
In like 10 years.
Yes.
Still not out, by the way.
It's what?
Still not out.
Still not out. But it's coming.
Yeah, and you know it's going to be good.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, damn, that would be insane. How could it not be good?
It has to be good.
But wasn't there another game like this? That's Cyberpunk?
Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077, yeah.
Also, like a huge budget, big build-up.
Yeah.
And it ended up not being good, right?
It launched with a ton of bugs. A ton. It was unplayable type of bugs.
So how does that happen? Like,
I think they rushed it. They had to rush it. They ran out of budget, and they're like, we got to make some money, otherwise we can't pay the bills.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Yeah, because they were testing it, right? They knew these bugs existed.
Absolutely.
But they ran it anyways.
Yeah. Wow. They just ran out of money.
That's interesting. Okay. So that's the video game industry.
Yeah. So, like, what does this mean for, like, all of crypto? Is to expect this. This is what happened. When you come up with something as innovative as in solution-based as Pump, you're going to see these copies. And this is part of the game. This is what is supposed to happen.
Right.
And so we got another example here that we're going to be showing.
Show it, dude.
All right. Let's move on.
Yeah, it's something else we need to kind of address, I guess.
So just before we move on, so we were talking about Solana, Pump, Printr, this whole ecosystem. We're about to enter that ecosystem with NAT.fun. The next 20-minute video you see is, once you see that video, you can automatically go to NAT.fun and it'll work.
Right.
Right, so it's live. So yeah, now we can move on. All right, so we're talking about DMT BIT. That's what we're referring to. So this is a token that launched, I would say like 2 or 3 months after the NAT token. Back in 2024.
Yeah.
So NAT launched in November 20th, 2023. And then it launched with a framework called DMT, Digital Matter Theory. And in this framework, anyone can use patterns on Bitcoin to launch tokens. So these guys, they use the same pattern as the NAT token, which is called DMT. So they launched that pattern. And the story is that it got like 20 to 30% blocked out, like, I don't know, in a month or whatever, when they launched it, and then nothing happened. And then so 2 years later, when that is actually, getting traction from miners and all this stuff, they come back and it's pretty close to, for BIT, it's pretty close to being blocked out, if not already. And they're directing their token to the miners too. They're using the same story as NAT, just nothing different, another copy.
Same element, meaning the same pattern.
Same pattern.
As NAT, meaning same overall supply.
Correct.
And the same emission dynamics as NAT.
Yes.
It's literally copy and paste. So yeah, to me, it's like you would expect this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This is how crypto is. Like Uniswap pops off, does well. Well, Sushi Swap
pops off,
does well. What are some other examples? I mean, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You've got a whole industry of people claiming.
Litecoin was supposed to be the silver, and it was that for a long time.
It's true. Yeah, so it's just Dogecoin happens. You've got a whole myriad of new meme coins. Like, this is kind of part of the course and expectation. But yeah, so the question is, I don't know, like what are the questions here? Well, I think the community is asking directly, like the NAT community to the BIT community. I think they had a response here.
So the next one here says, we got NAT community member in our GC
group chat, I guess,
asking why we need BIT as there's already NAT. Very fair question. BIT has different lore. So I'll tell you the lore. It just launched a few months after NAT. It didn't block out. The guy forgot about it. NAT takes off, comes back, and creates a website to mint BIT. It mints out or blocks out, and then they direct it to the miners as if directing it to the miners is some infinity money glitch. It's an easy thing to do to get miners to be aware of a token, and it's like they're just going to adopt it. And that isn't how this works. And so it's a very difficult business development process to get these miners to even recognize and understand the whole purpose of the token. And just to do that again it's not just going to unlock like infinity money for these people. And so again, this is an easy copy and paste situation that we've seen in every single ecosystem. And many times all these projects that just copy, they end up not doing well because they have no effort into the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, it's the not give a fuck energy, right?
Yeah.
That genuinely is like the separator of realities. It's like whether or not you actually genuinely give a fuck about these things that you do, or you're just trying to play a game. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So like this is like in parallel to like these copycat platforms just playing the pump game, trying to, get their piece of the pie. And through whatever means necessary.
Yeah, and so whatever means necessary, their marketing is like, we're going to take down pump because we're going to do pump better. And like that's the marketing, that's the pitch that they say without actually doing anything better.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it's just, that's what happens. And so just to see the holder count of BIT here, so if you go to mscribe and you look up DMT BIT, has 2,689 holders.
Yeah, so that's the biggest concern, I guess, for one. Is like, why is the holder count like 10x difference between whenever NAT blocked out versus this one? Well, you could assume there's a much larger cluster of like supply ownership to fewer holders, right? So therefore, NAT was much more organically distributed. This one, not as much. So there's that to consider, right?
For sure. Yeah, back when we launched DMT and therefore NAT, we didn't know like how quickly it would block out. We didn't know what interface was the most optimal. And it took 7 days for NAT to block out, and it was very difficult. You literally took JSON data, copied it, and pasted it somewhere to inscribe it, and you had to make sure that it didn't have the same block number. And so that effort, it took 7 days, which was very fast, but very difficult to do. And really is because Ordinal's wallet created an interface to make it significantly easier.
Yeah.
But that's why it has over 20,000 holders on day one. Mm-hmm. And so that distribution is critical to the whole story and success of NAT. And it's not something that can be easily replicated.
Yeah, I agree.
And so anyway, they had a website here that you can't really go to now, but they made it really easy to mint. So it's basically you can mint 10, 100, 1,000 blocks, all like essentially in one transaction. So that's why they were able to get it to mint out relatively quickly.
Yeah, so their claim here is, why not have more basically DMT tokens in the ecosystem as opposed to just that being a singular like success event? Why? Because you parallel that to other ecosystems like Ethereum.
Yeah.
You don't just want Ethereum, right? You want like Ethereum plus like a whole basket of other tokens that represent the Ethereum ecosystem to flourish as well, right? So that's sure. Like they're backing to this thesis of why BIT and not just NAT, right?
Yeah, it's just that when you compare Ethereum and Solana, right? Ethereum has different properties than Solana. Mm-hmm. Solana has a little bit better user experience, but Ethereum has the provenance, the security, the money, the industry, all that stuff. Solana is gaining that, but they are fundamentally different technologies and different offerings. Right. And so they, each of them are bringing something to the table. Copycat doesn't bring anything to the table. It's just a bunch of people trying to take advantage of a narrative and make a quick buck. And it's not as easy as you think.
No. I mean, we have a whole 2.5-year documentation of how challenging this has been.
Yeah.
To basically take NAT from 0 to 1. Right. And again, this is just more evidence that we have achieved that, right? Because this is systemically what happens in crypto whenever something has breaking through some threshold of validity, right?
Yeah, and we want more tokens to block out. We want more tokens to even be directed to the miners. But those tokens, they need to have specific properties, bring something new to the table, some new functionality, point to a different part of Bitcoin's properties.
That'd be nice. Discover a new property that's as interesting as what the
bits field does for
exactly. NAT. Yeah, just again further amplify and highlight that Bitcoin has these innate properties to it.
Yeah.
That can be leveraged in this like DMT framework, right? That would be cool.
Yes. Yeah.
But in this case, that it unfortunately doesn't do that. But
yeah.
the good news is NAT.fun is on the way.
Yeah.
And it's like a whole like packaging of that for people can select their own patterns whenever they deploy their tokens.
That's right.
And therefore introduce these new properties to their own like assets, right?
Yes.
In new novel ways that we probably don't even know, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the fun of this is like experimenting not just at the NFT level, you know, by incorporating these new rails to distributing collections and such, but yeah, doing your Bitcoin bit informatics research to find like, you know, some novel property to a pattern that can be either is already discovered or you can do the discovering and registry of.
Yeah.
And then use that as part of the ethos behind what it is you're deploying on NAT.fun, right?
Yeah, because whenever you pick an element or a pattern on Bitcoin, it has a generation rate.
Right.
Right. It could generate every block. It could generate every 10 blocks or...
Like NatCats generates every time 3B happens on the bits field, right?
Correct, which there's been a time span of 10 years where we had a generation of NatCats, and then 10 years went by with no NatCats.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then it just generated again.
Yeah. That's cool. That's interesting. That's new. That's unique. That's everything crypto is sorely lacking, right? These new verticals of weirdness, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just crypto's so still and boring now. You know, we need to introduce this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So take away from Bit.
Pasta, copy paste.
Yeah.
Not that interesting.
This is crypto.
It has 2,000 members, and I mean clearly it's bundled, and you know we were talking about how the setup can tell you a particular outcome of a token. Right, if the setup is completely bundled, then it's very likely that at some point when it gets to some arbitrary market cap, it's just going to nuke, right? Because it's bundled. If in a completely distributed token, yeah, things can still go up and down, but they have a little bit more organic pattern to it. And so if this gets into a reasonable market cap, it's going to go down like significantly because of the effort behind it, because of the you know, not give a fuck energy, right?
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what comes from it. But yeah, it's cool to see people have still, at the end of the day, inspired by what Nat has achieved and iterate further, I guess, right?
So speaking of Nat achievements, so this is something we haven't talked about yet. And it is F2Pool is distributing the Nat token to their pool participants. So the fourth or third biggest miner in Bitcoin has added NAT to their user interface for distribution.
Yeah, so that was pretty quick. I think a week ago it was like officially...
It was SpiderPool, and then like 2 days later it was F2Pool.
Yeah, which is a big deal, right? Because it's a miner higher up on the rankings list.
Yeah. So I think SpiderPool is 5th, and then F2Pool is 4th.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
So this is big news, I guess. It's like the nattening continues on, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm calling it now, not the happening.
Yeah.
The nattening, right?
Yeah, so F2Pool, so there are other pools still left to distribute NAT. I think it's like AmpPool and ViaBTC. There's rumors that they're kind of looking into it, so I don't know.
Yeah, because they're CoinX, right?
Yeah.
ViaBTC is CoinX?
That's correct. So CoinX is an exchange owned by ViaBTC.
So you literally just nat-pilled them on their Twitter space?
I absolutely did. I was like Steph Curry out there, dude.
Wow. Steph Curry.
It's like a Splash Brother. All by himself, by the way.
Damn, dude, you're missing your Klay Thompson?
I am, dude.
Or who's
yeah, Klay Thompson, yeah.
Klay Thompson? There's another guy, though, right?
What's his name?
Something Green?
Draymond
Green, yeah.
That's you, TJ.
That's me.
Hell yeah, dude.
Causing problems in the comment section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coughing.
Sorry, guys.
You've been pretty good today.
Yeah, you have.
Thank God for pharmaceuticals.
I want everybody to know nobody's more annoyed about it than I am.
Yeah, man. Damn the human biology.
Yeah, this is unacceptable. We're 2026 and we're still getting sick.
I know, right? I thought AI was supposed to like do something.
Yeah. Yeah, AI is like solving protein folding. I was like, how about solve the cold, the flu?
It's coming, dude. There'll be a peptide for that in no time. It's on the way. It's just a little injection.
Oh no, not doing that, dude. I'm not doing Ozempic type injections.
What if it's like a IQ enhancer, right?
All right, then I'm in.
All right. Well, there's some. What about an energy enhancer? It's like you don't have to sleep for days.
Oh, yeah, I'd be in for that too.
I think they've got some of that.
It's called meth, dude.
Yep.
Hopefully I didn't just meth pill you.
No.
It's like, yeah, I'll do some of that. I'll have to sleep for days. But yeah, and so there's a lot happening. So again, we're going to say it again. Yeah. The next video should be the video where we're live. And why we kept saying that? Because, things happen in the testing process. Right?
Yeah, we thought we were launching last week.
We thought we were launching like months
4
ago.
weeks ago.
Yeah. But when you're going through testing, it's like, okay.
It's definitely not ready.
It's not ready. It's not ready. It's not ready. It's not ready. But we're pretty confident. And I've been doing a lot of testing myself too. It's like it feels as close as you can get before it actually being like a live thing, right? So it's like very close to being.
Yeah. So all we're doing now is just we're doing some testing. We're launching some test tokens, and we're making sure that from launch to graduation to distribution of NFTs, it's like a smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. And so in each step, we're finding little things where we have to kind of fix, but we're finding less and less things to fix. So it's getting closer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so then by next video, a lot of things will probably be, I don't know, a little different.
Yeah. Right? So the next video, I think we're going to go through the platform. So by the time you're watching that video, you could go to the platform and start looking into launching tokens or seeing what's out there. But we're going to go through the platform in that video and just kind of like do an intro.
Yeah. Yeah. And then expect at some point, either at launch or, within days post-launch, there should be basically like a very, hopefully easy to understand onboarding how-to video for using the AI editor tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's still in its alpha state, meaning like there's a lot of improvements we got to do to that thing.
Yeah, and it's going to be launched as an alpha, so it's there's a lot of discovering that needs to be done with this tool.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the point of this video. It would be like the best thing to kind of consume post-launch if you have the intent of creating something and launching something. Learn how to use the tool to the best of your ability and the best of its live state.
Yeah.
So that you can produce some good vibes and kind of, participate and get this whole DMT experimentation era started, right?
Yeah, so I'm a man of agents, and what's cool about the platform is that you can connect your agent to NAT.fun, and you can connect it to the Vibe Studio tool that we have, the AI editor, and it could start building stuff for you, as an agent, start building stuff on your behalf.
Yeah.
And all you do is just interface with Hermes or OpenClaw and just tell it, what collection you want to build and send it to NAT.fun. Just share the API keys that are there on the platform, and it'll start building on your behalf on the platform. It's pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that means that needs to also be part of the video.
Yes.
It's like not just how to use the AI tool natively on NAT.fun, but how to do it, I guess, the AI way.
The agent way.
The agent way. Yeah. For you advanced individuals out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to service as many pockets of, creation as possible. Because again, you go to like Printr, all these other pump clones, you see what's happening here. You see the game that's being played. Obviously, it's like we're launching coins, right, guys? That's what we're really good at doing.
Yeah.
Or we've become really good at doing systemically and as like an industry. But you're not really seeing anything being created off of that.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what we feel is the missing layer to this whole thing we call like Web3, right? We've created the efficiency rails to, aggregating liquidity and attention. Now it's like, let's put that to work and actually produce something of value. Right?
I think one of the interesting things about what we're doing here and talking about the future is we're making a prediction that this would work. so that when it does work, we can go back and say, we had a prediction that it would work because of, this profile of structure that we built. And so this is, going back to science. This is kind of what you do. You make these predictions, and then you test it as an experiment. And if the experiment works out, you know that your predictions, your first principles thinking ends up being right. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we like being public about like what we think is going to happen, because sometimes, a lot of these things are predictable for all kinds of reasons, and you can pick them up before most people do.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so that's been the podcast. We talked about NAT, the copycats out there, and F2Pool distributing NAT. So this looks like a simple thing to do, but it's definitely not simple.
Right.
So yeah, that's the work that the community that NAT token has been doing. You cannot replicate it. You can try to copy it, but it's just not going to be the same, and therefore you're not going to get the same energy. And that is systemic across every single cryptocurrency industry, like vertical that there is.
Yeah.
And to expect more. So another prediction here, if NAT.fun has some success, we're going to see at least 10 platforms copy it.
Oh, for sure.
Straight copy, like just the same.
Yeah. And again, when that occurs, that is like the
indicator.
The indicator that we've created something of value for the market, right? So we actually enjoy seeing that. And
as a matter of fact, please copy it.
Yeah, please.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. And another prediction is, or I don't know if it's a prediction, but it's more like an observation. If your intent is actually like in support of the, the NAT thesis and the NAT mission, which is, enhancing and amplifying Bitcoin network's ability to secure the network, the best mode of contributing to that end is not necessarily forking NAT and like trying to redirect some new token that is going to take years of effort to build market liquidity and attention around to like replicate what NAT does. It's to use the platform of NAT.fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Because the whole premise of NAT.fun is to direct the value that's being generated from that platform to the purchasing of NAT.
Yes.
Right. As like that is the vehicle, the vessel of delivering, this reciprocal value back to the miners that produce this data substrate layer that we've now productized and we're bringing to market. Right?
Yeah. So it's no different than what Pump Fund is doing. They're buying their own tokens.
Yeah. They just burnt a shit ton of them, by the way.
Yeah. They burnt like 377 million.
Like dollars worth of pump tokens.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of companies like Apple, they do that. They buy their own shares off the market. So it is a thing, right? But what we're saying is the difference between these platforms here, that a lot of them have their own like launchpad token. Our launchpad token is the NAT token.
Yeah.
We're not launching anything other than the NAT token that we launched like 3 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, there will be no Sonar usage.
Yeah.
There will be no impromptu ICO.
Yeah.
A couple weeks down the line, it's like, holy shit, people really like us.
Yeah. I mean, if we ever launch an ICO, it's going to be because the token is useful for a particular thing.
Right.
Like it has like actual viability.
Yeah. But again, the energy that's conjured through DMT and that fund gets directed to NAT. So just a reminder for people. Like if you're truly aligned in securing the value of this thing, this Bitcoin thing, I know it's not real, but it'd be pretty awesome if I could just like somehow convert.
They had real ones.
Digibits
back in the day.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like it had like a QR code on it or something?
Yeah.
Like,
this guy was selling physical coins that had Bitcoin private keys etched into it.
Oh, that's badass, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like that.
And I think he added like half a Bitcoin in a lot of them.
Wow. Probably like in the early days.
It was like 2012, 2011.
Jesus. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so this one's not that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, if you really give a fuck about that, then that's the best way to contribute as of right now, right?
Yeah, so just a timestamp here, 70 million market cap for NAT, which is a significant difference. I shared a screenshot where it was at 2.9 million like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Let's keep it going, dude.
Yeah.
Look it. Yeah, I mean, as cool as it is to celebrate that, it's like it's literally not even 1% like where we need to go.
Not even.
To like actually make a dent.
Yeah, this needs to get to $1 billion market cap because that's when it enters into the serious conversation of security budget viability.
Yeah, that's where it hits like fee parity, right? Where it's delivering as much value as the network fees.
Yes.
Then it's unavoidable. Then like even the Bitcoin maxis will start to become aware and have to formulate some sort of opinion about
And they're going to hate it. And
for sure.
That's exactly what you want.
They will. Some might see through like their own,
beyond their own shit.
Yeah, then like, this is actually good for these things that I own.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the real goal is actually, as absurd as it sounds to say out loud, is to get this into the trillions, because that's where it actually serves its full functioning purpose.
Absolutely.
As an actual legitimate subsidy of value to these, again, the critical maintainers of this, this thing that needs to be secured.
Yeah. So the simple equation is that Bitcoin is based on, its value is based on security. Security equals miner revenue, and miner revenue is in decline. And so it needs something to kind of supplant that miner revenue to maintain security, to maintain value of Bitcoin. Yeah. And so if we can get a mechanism sent to miners, a second subsidy sent to miners using a mechanism where it doesn't decay over time, then that means that as Bitcoin continues to grow in value, the security can also grow in value. So that's what NAT is. So that's been the podcast today. We talked about NAT. We talked about the ecosystem of Solana and a bunch of copycats. If you have any questions around anything we talked about today, let us know in the comment section below. We will catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.